Hello! I know I say this every month, but it really feels like every month goes by so fast. It's crazy that we're a quarter of the way done with 2021. This past week, I took a week off of work to relax and to spend time with some friends. In summary, we pretty much just didn't do anything all week, and because of that, this video is going up a lot later than I intended. But like I've said in the past, it's always important to know your limits and to take breaks. As you can see, I started on the cover by writing April in a really simple, kind of bouncy but disconnected font. I used a purple mildliner and then drew in a drop shadow along the right and bottom side of the letters before writing 2021 underneath. Next, you'll see me starting to draw the outline of a bunny holding a pinwheel, which is my theme for April. Since the start of 2021, a lot of my themes have been inspired by songs that I love, and this one is the same. I started this theme because of the song Pinwheel by 17's vocal line, which includes Uzi, Jonghan, Joshua, DK, and Seungkwan. 17 is a Korean boy group that I got really into last year, so I couldn't resist doing a theme based on one of their songs. Pinwheels are already a very spring theme, and once I decided on incorporating them, I wanted to choose something else that would be spring inspired. Of course I had to choose bunnies because they are adorable and probably the first animal I think of when it comes to the spring and Easter season. You'll definitely be seeing a lot of bunny and pinwheel doodles, but I promise you that they are not super difficult to draw. I mean, I did it, so I trust that you can do it too. On the bunny, I started by drawing the head in the shape of a gumdrop before adding the eyes, ears, nose, and mouth. I left a white circle on the side of the eyes so that you could see the reflection, but you'll see later that I started using a white pen to do this on the smaller bunnies. Then you'll actually see that I switched over to draw the pinwheel and ribbon bow in front because I like to draw the outlines of the objects that are towards the front first before filling in the back. I'll go through more in depth about the instructions on how to draw the pinwheels towards the end of this video, so if you're interested in that, then keep watching. Then I finished it by drawing the body and made the arms go inwards so that it looks like the bunny is holding the pinwheel. The easiest way for me to draw arms for these cartoon animals is always by doing these rounded triangles, or I guess more like rounded angle brackets. Now for the color, I wanted spring colors, and you might have already guessed based on the background, but I'm doing a pink and purple theme. I will be using a bit of gray here and there for filling in some of the pinwheels, but the focus will be on the spring colors. Since I already used purple for writing out April, I used the pink to add little blush marks and then used the pink to fill in the nose and ears of the bunny. For the pinwheel, I went in with my purple markers and I used a few different shades to emphasize the shadows of the pinwheel as well. I went in with the gray to color the pinwheel stick and pink for the ribbon and bow. Finally, I decided to color in the belly of the bunny pink. This month is going to be a relatively minimal and simple theme, so I decided to skip adding any color to the bunny and just kept it white. To finish off this page, I just added a small border around the page with a gray mildliner. For the quote page, I decided to use translated song lyrics like I have in the past. These lyrics read, "Even if you get lost and it takes you a while, come round and round back to me, even if it's far ahead in the future." Pinwheel is a soft ballad similar to BTS's Spring Day in that it's all about longing and loneliness. Uzi actually wrote the lyrics to the song after a dream about a single pinwheel spinning on a path in the middle of a vast meadow and gloomy sky. He said that it felt like the pinwheel was waiting for someone. Besides the depth and imagery in the lyrics, the song starts out with a beautiful piano intro and the soft vocals are able to bring out the emotion of the song really well. Please check out the song when you have the chance to. All of 17's discography is amazing, but the ballads definitely have a special place in my heart. You'll see that it looks like I'm using a variety of fonts, but it's actually just the two fonts from the cover page. I played with the spacing between the letters and also used different markers to vary the thickness. For the main skinny font that I wrote with the fine liner, I got rid of most of the corners of the letters and replaced them with curves, so you can see this especially in the letters N and E. For the letters in pink and in the middle of the banner, I reused the disconnected bouncy font from the cover. Finally, I added the calligraphy for the word future. I started with a light purple and then went over the top third of the letter with a darker purple using downward strokes. I went back with the light purple marker to pull down some of the darker purple and to blend it downwards. I will say that the ink did ghost a little on the other side because of how many times I went over the same spot, so just be careful if you have the Maisie Lane journal. I do think that because the pages are 160 GSM that they hold up really well though. Like, I think I went over the same spot at least 7 or 8 times for it to ghost. In the bottom right corner of the song lyrics, I drew another bunny, but this one is kind of smiling with its eyes closed and throwing its arms up in the air. I also moved the bow to the ear for this one. Then I just drew 2 pinwheels in the upper left corner before drawing the gray border around the lyrics. I took a short break to let the ink dry before erasing the pencil marks. Then it was time for the easy part, which was coloring. I made the pinwheels pink and purple and again used a darker shade for the shadows. Then I colored the banner in the middle of the page purple and used a white pen to add some details to the calligraphy. On the downstrokes I added some lines and dots. Then the last thing was just coloring the bunny. I was originally going to add some more color to the edges of the pages for both the cover and the song lyrics, but I'm really enjoying the white space and simplicity. Moving on to the monthly, there's not much to be said because I pretty much have been doing the same sort of spread every month. This is also a relatively simple spread where I think you'll be able to follow along if you just watch, so instead I want to talk about something that has been on my mind a lot lately. If you've been watching or reading the news lately, then you'll know that there has been a rise in violence towards the Asian American community, but the elderly have been especially targeted in these hate crimes. At the beginning of quarantine a year ago, I talked about how the rise is in part due to a repercussion of the media regarding the pandemic, but now I'm realizing that it goes further to uncover a history of deep-rooted xenophobia. There's obviously a lot more that can be said about this anti-Asian sentiment, as well as about my own experience growing up Asian American, but I just want to say if you ever want to reach out to me to talk about anything going on or are going through a rough patch, then you can always reach out to me via my socials. But that's it for my monthly layout. I'll continue to talk about ways in which you can help the Asian American community as we move on. I do wonder if I'm going to like the smaller calendar for this layout, but I like how much space it gave me to write my monthly goals and to have a drawing at the bottom. These next couple of spreads are going to be very quick and easy, starting with the mood tracker. I wanted to have a bunny wishing on the pinwheels as they float in the sky, so I drew the back of the bunny, and you're actually able to see the little cotton ball tail on this one. As I was mentioning earlier, I wanted to go into some ways in which you can be an ally to the Asian American community. I think the first being to just listen to the Asian Americans speaking and their stories. I don't think anyone in the Asian American community wants to be accepted by someone who doesn't see color, but we want you to see us in light of our race and then to also accept and acknowledge us. Very similar to other minority communities, I think people like to pick what they want and like from our culture, whether it be the food or the music, but accepting is about acknowledging the culture as a whole, including all the hardships and pain, and standing by us in support during those times. Next, I want to point out that keeping yourself educated about the current events is important to give you knowledge about what's going on with the community and to help you bring awareness to the people around you. Finally, one other really simple step if you are financially able to is to donate to the many organizations that are seeking to end this anti-Asian violence. Or you can show your support by shopping at some small Asian-owned businesses. Of course, I will be linking the shops and resources in the description down below, but I think sometimes one of the biggest impacts is to just reach out to your Asian American friends and to see how they're doing. My high school best friend recently reached out to me and just checked in to see how I was doing and if there was anything that she could do, and I have to say that that single text message touched my heart. Now, as you can see, I just finished up the other half of this spread with the habit tracker. I kind of like how the pages incorporated both the mood tracker and the habit tracker together. I'm hoping to do more spreads like this in the future. Moving on to the next spread, I'm doing another 2 lines a day spread because I really liked how it gave me something to look back on and to remember throughout March. Something that I've been really big on in light of everything that I've mentioned previously has been reflection, so it's important to me to have this space. I also think if you're just starting to get into journaling that this is a great way to reflect because 2 lines is a small amount to write each day, but is enough space to let you reflect well. I also just miss writing in general because I haven't had to write much since starting work full-time. Along the bottom of this page is where I drew my pinwheel and bunny doodles. I alternated the colors on the pinwheels between purple and pink, and it made the pinwheels look adorable. When I was drawing all of the pinwheels out, they started looking a little more like windmills to me, but I guess pinwheels could be considered just tiny windmills. Anyway, this spread was pretty quick and easy, so let's move on. Alright, let's get into the last spread of this video. Since the weekly overlaps with half of March, I decided to make one side for March and one side for April. I started with writing the months across the center. On the left side, I drew the pinwheel for the spread. Now for the short step-by-step pinwheel tutorial I promised earlier. I usually like to draw a circle in pencil as a guide first. Then I start with drawing a circle in the center of the pinwheel. Then I drew 4 perpendicular ovals that are kind of like petals coming out of the center. I usually like to do this with pencil first so I can adjust the ovals to overlap the blades. I don't know if you would call the triangle part the blade, but that's what I'm going to call them. After drawing the ovals, I like to do these curved triangle shapes, which is one line perpendicular to the edge of the oval and then one diagonally towards the center of the pinwheel. I finish each of the pinwheel doodles with drawing the stick at the bottom, which is usually a rounded rectangle or half oval. Then, as expected, I drew the bunny doodle on the right. This might be one of my favorites that I drew because of how happy it looks. I simply finished the spread by highlighting and writing the days of the week down, as well as making one of the sections for notes. Once I colored the pinwheel and bunny, this weekly is done. Now with the final flip through, if you have any thoughts or opinions on the anti-Asian violence happening or want to leave a word of encouragement to the community, please do in the comments. I really hope that this channel will always be a safe community to encourage others and also a place of learning. Don't forget to listen to Pinwheel by 17, and that is all for this video. I will see you all in the next one when I set up my April weeklies. Bye for now!